Have you ever found yourself sitting in a perfectly quiet room and realize the silence feels heavier than it should? It's not just the absence of sound, it's the absence of laughter, footsteps, voices. The kind of silence that settles in after life has taken from you the people you once shared it with. Maybe your children live hours away. Maybe you've lost someone who once filled your days with warmth. Or maybe you've simply woken up one morning and realized the house no longer feels like a home. It's just four walls holding memories you're not sure what to do with. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. More and more older adults across America are grappling with a growing epidemic that isn't often discussed. Emotional isolation, not just being alone, but feeling alone even when surrounded by others. And it's not just emotional. Research from Harvard shows that loneliness in people over 60 can raise the risk of heart disease, cognitive decline, and even premature death, more than smoking or obesity. But here's the hopeful truth. It doesn't have to be this way. Your later years can still be deeply joyful, connected, and meaningful. In today's video on Senior Wisdom, the channel where we help you live healthier, fuller lives every day, we'll share the emotional story of Jack Thompson, a 62-year-old man who found himself swallowed by silence after the death of his wife and the growing distance from his children. But what Jack discovered through that darkness might surprise you. You'll learn how one unexpected friendship helped Jack rediscover joy, why emotional resilience matters as much as physical health in your 60s and 70s, and how making just one small decision can completely change the direction of your life after retirement. This isn't just Jack's story, it could be yours or someone you love. So stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll have a renewed sense of purpose, and maybe even a few practical tools to start feeling more alive again. And if any part of this already speaks to your heart, do me a small favor. Click like, hit subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss a story that could lift you up, comfort you, or help you feel less alone. Now, let's begin with the moment Jack realized that something had to change. 1. Loneliness in old age. There's a certain ache that comes not from illness or injury, but from emptiness. For Jack, it settled in slowly after Sarah, his wife of 38 years, passed away. The house that once echoed with laughter, Sunday dinners, and the footsteps of his children now stood silent, like a photo album left open to a page that no longer changed. At first, he tried to fill the time. He cleaned in the garage, organized old letters, even taught himself how to cook her favorite chicken casserole. But nothing quieted the loneliness. And while his children, Adam and Emily, loved him dearly, they had their own families now. Their visits grew shorter, their calls more rushed, not out of neglect, but out of life's relentless pace. Jack understood, but that didn't make the silence any easier. So what's really happening here? As we grow older, our social circle often shrinks. Retirement, the passing of loved ones, or simply losing touch. At the same time, our emotional needs don't disappear. In fact, they become more important. According to the National Institute on Aging, social isolation can lead to a 50% increased risk of dementia, a 29% higher risk of heart disease, and higher levels of depression and anxiety. Why? Because the human brain was never meant to live in silence. Emotionally, we need connection. Biologically, we thrive on touch, voice, laughter. Without them, our nervous system goes into a quiet kind of distress, raising cortisol levels and weakening immune response over time. But here's the encouraging truth. You don't need a crowd to feel connected. You just need consistency and intention. Jack didn't know it at the time, but the first step toward healing wasn't a big decision. It was small. He started taking short walks to the park each morning, just 15 minutes. He'd sit on the same bench near the rose garden. Over time, he began greeting the same dog-walking neighbor. A nod became a hello became a conversation, and that simple routine sparked the beginning of something new. So what's a natural way to fight back against the heaviness of loneliness? Here are a few gentle yet powerful steps. Establish a daily ritual that takes you outside. Even 5 minutes of sunlight can lift mood by boosting serotonin. Join a local community group, whether it's a senior book club, walking circle, or gardening meetup. Don't wait to feel ready. Show up. Reconnect through letters or voice notes. You don't need to wait for your children to call. Reach out. It reminds them and yourself that you're still here and still full of life. Jack's first step wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to begin changing his days, one quiet morning at a time. 2. The fateful encounter with Margaret. Sometimes life surprises us when we least expect it. For Jack, that surprise came in the form of Margaret, a woman with silver hair, kind eyes, and a quiet smile that reminded him of warmth he hadn't felt in years. They met at the community center. Jack was playing a slow game of chess with a gentleman named Carl when Margaret walked by, carrying a tray of tea. She glanced over at the board and said softly, "Watch out for his bishop." Carl always traps people with that move. Jack looked up, startled, then chuckled. "Is that so?" Carl grumbled, and they all laughed. It was nothing more than a passing moment. But for Jack, it was the first time in months that laughter felt real. Over the next few weeks, they started seeing each other more. Margaret would join the morning walks. Sometimes she'd bring along a homemade oatmeal cookie, just in case someone forgot breakfast. In other times, they'd sit on the park bench, talking about books they used to love, or the kinds of music their spouses hated, but they secretly enjoyed. They never talked about love, not in the way they used to when they were young. This wasn't about romance, it was about companionship. You see, after a certain age, what we seek in another person changes. It's no longer about fireworks. It's about presence. Someone to sit beside you at dinner. Someone who remembers your stories and helps you laugh at them. Someone who doesn't need to fill every silence because they're simply comfortable sharing it with you. Margaret understood Jack's grief, not just in theory, but in her bones. She too had lost a spouse. She too knew what it was like to make coffee for one. That shared understanding created a bond that didn't need to be labeled. It simply was. And slowly, without either of them noticing, Jack began to feel different. He slept a little better. He ate a little more. The tightness in his chest loosened when she was around. There's a simple science behind it too. According to geriatric psychologists, even mild companionship can lower stress hormones, improve cardiovascular health, and boost emotional resilience. A shared laugh, a gentle touch on the hand, even a warm conversation before bedtime. These small acts stimulate oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, which helps regulate blood pressure and improve mood. Margaret wasn't trying to fix Jack. She simply sat with him in the quiet and made it less lonely. That, more than anything else, gave him reason to look forward to tomorrow. 3. Loss and acceptance. Jack never imagined he'd lose her too. Not so soon, not like that. When Margaret told him that her son was getting married and had invited her to live with his new family in Oregon, Jack felt a quiet ache in his chest, but he smiled. "You should go," he said softly. "He needs you. I'll be okay." Margaret looked at him for a long time, her eyes glistening with something unsaid. But in the end, she hugged him tight and whispered, "You've been my peace, Jack." "Thank you for that." She left on a chilly autumn morning. Jack watched her bus pull away until it disappeared beyond the trees. The silence that followed was heavier than any he had known before. For a few weeks, he tried to keep busy, returning to the park, playing chess, walking alone, but every corner reminded him of her. The bench they sat on, the spot where she tripped on a root and laughed so hard they had to sit down, the way she always brought an extra cookie, just in case. Then came the call. A neighbor of Margaret's, someone Jack had never spoken to, told him Margaret had been in a car accident. It was serious. She didn't make it. The room around Jack spun. The phone slipped from his hand. The world, once again, had taken someone he loved and left behind only silence. This time, the loneliness wasn't just emotional, it was physical. His chest hurt, his appetite vanished, his nights were restless. What Jack didn't realize was that grief, especially in older adults, doesn't just break the heart, it affects the entire body. Studies show that bereavement in seniors can trigger what doctors call broken heart syndrome, a real and sudden stress-induced heart condition. It's why the loss of a loved one often leads to sudden declines in health among older adults. Jack spent days just sitting in his chair, staring at the floor. The companionship that once pulled him out of the shadows was now a memory, tender but unreachable. But even in grief, the body still breathes, the heart still beats, and that small, stubborn rhythm is what brought Jack back to life. He started writing letters to Margaret. He never mailed them, he just wrote to say what he couldn't say in time. And in doing so, he found a quiet form of healing. Grief never truly leaves, but we learn to live beside it. And slowly, Jack began to accept that Margaret's presence would always be part of him, even in her absence. She had loved him, he had loved her, and nothing, not time, not death, could take that away. If you felt even a small connection to Jack's story, if it reminded you of someone you love, or even a part of yourself, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Senior Wisdom, and tap the bell so you don't miss the stories we share here every week. And if you're still holding on to hope, hope for connection, for healing, for brighter days ahead, just type the word hope in the comments. Sometimes that single word can be a light for someone else reading it too. Or more. Lessons of growing up in solitude. In the weeks that followed Margaret's passing, Jack lived in what he described as a fog. Days passed, but he couldn't tell you which. He ate because someone reminded him. He slept because his body demanded on it, but in truth, he was just existing, not living. Until one morning, he stepped outside. It was early. The sun had barely risen. The garden outside the nursing home was still glistening with dew. He hadn't planned to go anywhere. He simply wanted to breathe. And then he saw it. An older man, new to the home, sat alone on a bench, the very one Jack and Margaret had once shared. His shoulders slumped, his eyes distant, as if he too had lost something he wasn't ready to name. Jack hesitated. Then slowly he walked over. He didn't say much, just placed a gentle hand on the man's shoulder and asked, "Would you like to take a walk with me?" That moment changed something in Jack. It didn't erase his grief, but for the first time since Margaret left, he reached beyond his own pain to ease someone else's. And in doing so, a truth emerged. Healing doesn't always happen in solitude. Sometimes it begins in service. Each day after that, Jack began rebuilding his life, not through grand gestures, but through small, steady acts of intention. A morning walk, even when his knees ached. A friendly conversation in the dining hall, even when his heart felt quiet. A chess match every Wednesday, not to win, but to connect. And slowly he began to reclaim the pieces of himself that grief had buried. Science backs this up. Older adults who engage in consistent social interaction and purposeful daily routines show improvements in mental sharpness, lower depression rates, and even longer life expectancy. The brain, much like the heart, is resilient, but only when we give it reason to stay engaged. Jack came to understand something simple but profound. Love never truly leaves us. It changes form, yes, but it lingers. In the laughter we remember, in the habits we keep, in the ways we show up for others, even in our own quiet pain. Margaret may have been gone, but her presence lived on. In Jack's care for others, in the stories he shared, in the warmth he passed forward, and in those small human connections, Jack found something greater than comfort. He found purpose. 5. A profound message about aging. What does it really mean to age gracefully? For some, it's about staying active. For others, it's staying wrinkle-free. But for Jack, growing older came with a lesson that ran far deeper than appearances or hobbies. It was about something he never expected to learn so late in life: how to stand strong without needing to stand alone. Jack had faced what many fear most: losing the person who knew him best, and then losing the one who helped him feel alive again. And yet, he was still here, still breathing, still finding meaning in the smallest parts of his day. That was the turning point. He realized that aging gracefully doesn't mean smiling through every hardship. It means allowing yourself to feel, to grieve, to miss, to hope, and still finding the strength to get up the next morning. It's learning how to be independent without becoming isolated, how to ask for help without losing your dignity, how to carry the memories of love without letting grief consume you. Jack began to see aging not as an ending, but as a season of refinement. Just as a tree sheds its leaves but grows deeper roots, Jack was learning to let go of what had passed and dig deeper into what truly mattered. He started helping other residents at the nursing home adjust to their new routines. He taught one woman how to play chess. He read books to a gentleman with failing eyesight. He even helped organize a small music night where they played old records and sang along to familiar tunes. And in those small acts, Jack rediscovered his own value. Not because others needed him, but because he still had something to give. That's what aging with purpose looks like, knowing that your worth doesn't fade just because your calendar is emptier. Understanding that love, real love, isn't bound by youth or beauty, and realizing that the greatest gift you can give yourself in your later years is peace. Peace in who you are, peace in where you have been, and peace in knowing that your story still matters. Jack's journey reminds us that aging isn't something to fear. It's something to grow into with grace, with courage, and above all, with heart. If you've stayed with us until now, I want to say something from the heart. You're not alone, and it's never too late. Whether you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, or beyond, your health, your awe, your sense of purpose, they are still within reach. You may have faced deep loss. You may have days where the silence feels too heavy, where your body doesn't move like it used to, or where you wonder if anyone really sees you anymore. But please remember this: you are still here, and that means something. Jack's story reminded us that growing older doesn't mean fading away. It means learning how to listen more deeply to your own needs. It means finding healing in small routines: morning walks, shared meals, kind conversations. It means allowing love in all its quiet forms to enter your life again, even after grief. Science tells us that even simple habits, like connecting with others, getting sunlight, laughing, or finding meaning in your daily life, can have a powerful effect on your heart, your brain, your body. But beyond the science, what truly matters is this: you deserve to feel well, to feel seen, to feel hopeful. You don't have to change everything overnight. Start small. One new habit, one new connection, one act of kindness, especially toward yourself. Because every step forward, no matter how gentle, is still movement toward a brighter tomorrow. At Senior Wisdom, we believe that aging can be a beautiful chapter, not the end of your story, but the beginning of a deeper, more peaceful one. So take a deep breath, know that healing is possible, and walk into your next day not with fear, but with quiet confidence that you still have so much to give and even more to live for. Thank you for being here. You're stronger than you know, and your best days may still be ahead. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. If you're over 60, know this from the bottom of our hearts: you matter deeply. Your experiences, your wisdom, your presence in this world are irreplaceable. At Senior Wisdom, we're here to walk beside you, to offer comfort, health insights, and hope for every step ahead. If today's story touched you, even in a small way, please consider liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing it with someone you care about. You never know, your share might bring light to someone else's day, just as your presence has brought light to ours. Stay well, stay strong, and above all, stay connected. We'll see you again very soon.